Hello. Welcome to Noetry. Welcome, Egret. Good evening or good morning. I hope the day finds you well. Please sit back and enjoy these selections the animals and I have found, and try to guess the topic for today. I guess I probably titled it something between now and the time I've uploaded it. So enjoy first this fable called Rabbit Boy from the White River Sioux. It is preceded by this short explanation. This is a story of Rabbit Boy. In some tribes, it is called the story of Blood Clot Man. As you know, Jenny Leading Cloud said, we Indians think of the earth and the whole universe as a never-ending circle, and in this circle, man is just another animal. The buffalo and the coyote are our brothers, the birds our cousins, even the tiniest ant, even the louse, even the smallest flower you can find, they are all relatives. We end our prayers with the words, Mitakuye Oyasin, all my relations. And that includes everything that grows, crawls, runs, creeps, hops, and flies on this continent. White people see man as nature's master and conqueror, but Indians, who are close to nature, know better. In the old days before Columbus discovered us, as they say, we were even closer to the animals than we are now. Many people could understand the animal languages. They could talk to a bird, gossip with a butterfly. Animals could change themselves into people and people into animals. It was a time when the earth was not quite finished, when many kinds of mountains and streams, animals and plants came into being according to nature's plan. In these far-gone days, hidden from us as in a mist, there lived a rabbit, a very lively, playful, good-hearted rabbit. One day this rabbit was walking, enjoying himself, when he came across a clot of blood. How it got there, nobody knows. It looked like a blister, a little bladder full of red liquid. Well, the playful rabbit began toying with that clot of blood, kicking it around as if it were a tiny ball. Now, we Indians believe in Takuskanskan, the mysterious power of motion. Its spirit is in anything that moves. It animates things and makes them come alive. Well, the rabbit got into this strange moving power without even knowing it, and the motion of being kicked around, or rather the spirit of motion, and I hope you can grasp what I mean by that, began to work on the little blob of blood so that it took shape, forming a little gut. The rabbit kicked it some more, and the blob began to grow tiny hands and arms. The rabbit kept nudging it, and suddenly it had eyes and a beating heart. In this way, the rabbit, with the help of the mysterious moving power, formed a human being, a little boy. The rabbit called him Weota Wikasa, Much Blood Boy, but he is better known as Rabbit Boy. The rabbit took him to his wife, and both of them loved this strange little boy as if he were their only son. They dressed him up in a beautiful buckskin shirt, which they painted with the sacred red color and decorated with designs made of porcupine quills. The boy grew up happily among the rabbits. When he was almost a man, the old rabbit took him aside and said, "Son, I must tell you that you are not what you think you are, a rabbit like me. You are a human. We love you and we hate to let you go, but you must leave and find your own people." Rabbit Boy started walking until he came to a village of human beings, where he saw boys who looked like himself. He went into the village. The people could not help staring at this strange boy in his beautiful buckskin clothes. "Where are you from?" they asked him. I am from another village, said Rabbit Boy, though this was not true. There was no other village in the whole world, for as I told you, the earth was still in its beginning. In the village was a beautiful girl who fell in love with Rabbit Boy, not only for his fine clothes, but also for his good looks and kind heart. Her people, too, wanted him to marry into the village, wanted a man with his great mystery power to live among them. And Rabbit Boy had a vision. In it he was wrestling with the sun, racing the sun, playing hand games with the sun, and always winning. But Iktomi, the wicked Spider-Man, the mean trickster, prankster, and witch doctor, wanted that beautiful girl for himself. He began to say bad things about Rabbit Boy. Look at him, Iktomi said, showing off his buckskin outfit to us who are too poor to have such fine things. And to the men he also said, how come you're letting him marry a girl from your village? He also told them, in case you want me to, I have a magic hoop to throw over that Rabbit Boy. It will make him helpless. Several boys said, Iktomi is right. They were jealous of Rabbit Boy on account of his strange power, his wisdom and generosity. They began to fight him, and Spider-Man threw his magic hoop over him. Though it had no effect on Rabbit Boy, he pretended to be helpless to amuse himself. The village boys and young men tied Rabbit Boy to a tree with rawhide thongs. All the time, the evil Spider-Man was encouraging them. Let's take our butchering knives and cut him up. Friends, kolapila, said Rabbit Boy. If you are going to kill me, let me sing my death song first. And he sang, friends, friends, I have fought the sun. He tried to burn me up, but he could not do it. Even battling the sun, I held my own. After the death song, the villagers killed Rabbit Boy and cut him up into chunks of meat, which they put in a soup pot. But Rabbit Boy was not hurt easily. A storm arose, and a great cloud hid the face of the sun, turning everything into black night. When the cloud was gone, the chunks of meat had disappeared without a trace. But those who had watched closely had seen the chunks forming up again into a body, had seen him going up to heaven on a beam of sunlight. A wise old medicine man said, this Rabbit Boy really has powerful medicine. He has gone up to see the sun. Soon he will come back stronger than before, because up there he will be given the sun's powers. Let's marry him to that girl of ours. But the jealous spider, Iktomi, said, why bother about him? Look at me. I am much more powerful than Rabbit Boy. Here, tie me up too. Cut me up. Be quick. Iktomi thought he remembered Rabbit Boy's song. He thought there was power in it, magic strength. But Iktomi did not remember the words right. He sang, friends, friends, I have fought the moon. She tried to fight, but I won. Even battling the moon, I came out on top. They cut Iktomi up, as he had told them, but he never came to life again. The spider had finally outsparked himself. Evil tricksters always do. Told by Jenny Leading Cloud in White River Rosebud Indian Reservation, South Dakota, 1967, and recorded by Richard Erdosh. And now a poem by Claude McKay, titled If We Must Die. If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us, though dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Like men we'll face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying, but fighting back. And now, favorite poem by Robert Frost. This called The Code. There were 3 in the meadow by the brook, gathering up windrows, piling cocks of hay, with an eye always lifted toward the west, where an irregular sun-bordered cloud darkly advanced with a perpetual dagger flickering across its bosom. Suddenly, one helper, thrusting pitchfork in the ground, marched himself off the field and home. One stayed. The town-bred farmer failed to understand. What is there wrong? Something you just now said. What did I say about our taking pains? To the cock, the hay, because it's going to shower? I said that more than half an hour ago. I said it to myself as much as you. You didn't know, but James is one big fool. He thought you meant to find fault with his work. That's what the average farmer would have meant. James would take time, of course, to chew it over before he acted. He's just got round to act. He is a fool if that's the way he takes me. Don't let it bother you. You found out something. The hand that knows his business won't be told to do work better or faster. Those 2 things. I'm as particular as anyone. Most likely I'd have served you just the same, but I know you don't understand our ways. You were just talking what was in your mind. What was in all our minds, and you weren't hinting. Tell you a story of what happened once. I was up here in Salem, at a man's named Sanders, with a gang of 4 or 5, doing the haying. No one liked the boss. He was one of the kind sports call a spider, all wiry arms and legs that spread out wavy from a humped body nigh as big's a biscuit. But work, that man could work, especially if by doing so he could get more done. If by doing so he could get more work out of his hired help. I'm not denying he was hard on himself. I couldn't find that he kept any hours for himself. Daylight and lantern light were one to him. I've heard him pounding in the barn all night. But what he liked was someone to encourage. Them that he couldn't lead he'd get behind and drive, the way you can, you know, in mowing, keeping at their heels and threaten to mow their legs off. I'd seen about enough of his bulling tricks. We call that bulling. I'd been watching him. So when he paired off with me in the hayfield to load the load, thinks I, look out for trouble. I built the load and topped it off. Old Sanders combed it down with a rake and says, okay. Everything went well till we reached the barn, with a big bag to empty in a bay. You understand that meant the easy job for the man up on top of throwing down the hay and rolling it off wholesale, where on a mow it would have been slow lifting. You wouldn't think a fellow'd need much urging under those circumstances, would you now? But the old fool seizes his fork in both hands, and looking up, bewhiskered out of the pit, shouts like an army captain, let her come. Thinks I, do you mean it? What was that you said? I asked out loud, so there'd be no mistake. Did you say, let her come? Yes, let her come. He said it over, but he said it softer. Never you say a thing like that to a man, not if he values what he is. God, I'd as soon murdered him as left out his middle name. I'd built the load and knew right where to find it. 2 or 3 forkfuls I picked lightly round for, like meditating, and then I just dug in and dumped the rack full on him in 10 lots. I looked over the side once in the dust and caught sight of him treading water-like, keeping his head above. Damn ye, he says. I says, that gets ye. He squeaked like a squeezed rat. That was the last I saw or heard of him. I cleaned the rack and drove out to cool off. As I sat, mopping hayseed from my neck and sort of waiting to be asked about it, one of the boys sings out, "Where's the old man?" I left him in the barn under the hay. If you want him, you can go dig him out. They realized from the way I swabbed my neck more than was needed. Something must be up. They headed for the barn. I stayed where I was. They told me afterward. First, they forte, a lot of it, out into the barn. Nothing. They listened for him, not a rustle. I guess they thought I'd spiked him in the temple before I buried him, or I couldn't have managed. They excavated more. "Go keep his wife out of the barn," someone looked in a window, and cursed me if he wasn't in the kitchen, slumped way down in a chair, with both his feet against the stove, the hottest day that summer. He looked so clean disgusted from behind. There was no one that dared to stir him up, or let him know that he was being looked at. Apparently I hadn't buried him. I may have knocked him down. But my just trying to bury him had hurt his dignity. He'd gone to the house so's not to meet me. He kept away from us all afternoon. We tended to his hay. We saw him out after a while picking peas in his garden. He couldn't keep away from doing something. Weren't you relieved to find he wasn't dead? No. And yet, I don't know. It's hard to say. I went about to kill him, fair enough. You took an awkward way. Did he discharge you? Discharge me? No. He knew I did just right. And now one by Elizabeth Bishop. Called Manuelzinho, with a subtext of Brazil, a friend of the writer is speaking. Half squatter, half tenant, no rent. A sort of inheritance, white, in your 30s now, and supposed to supply me with vegetables, but you don't, or you won't, or you can't get the idea through your brain. The world's worst gardener since Cain. Tilted above me, your gardens ravish my eyes. You edge the beds of silver cabbages with red carnations and lettuces mixed with alyssum. And then umbrella ants arrive, or it rains for a solid week, and the whole thing's ruined again. And I buy you more pounds of seeds, imported, guaranteed, and eventually you bring me a mystic 3-legged carrot, or a pumpkin bigger than a baby. I watch you through the rain, trotting, light, on bare feet, up the steep paths you have made, or your father and grandfather made, all over my property, with your head and back inside a sodden burlap bag, and feel I can't endure it another minute. Then, indoors, beside the stove, keep on reading a book. You steal my telephone wires, or someone does. You starve your horse and yourself and your dogs and family. Among endless variety, you eat boiled cabbage stalks. And once I yelled at you so loud to hurry up and fetch me those potatoes, your holy hat flew off. You jumped out of your clogs, leaving 3 objects arranged in a triangle at my feet, as if you'd been a gardener in a fairy tale all this time, and at the word potatoes had vanished to take up your work of fairy prince somewhere. The strangest things happen to you. Your cow eats poison grass and drops dead on the spot. Nobody else's does. And then your father dies, a superior old man with a black plush hat and a mustache, like a white spread-eagled seagull. The family gathers, but you, no, you don't think he's dead. I look at him. He's cold. They're burying him today. But you know, I don't think he's dead. I give you money for the funeral, and you go and hire a bus for the delighted mourners. So I have to hand over some more, and then have to hear you tell me you pray for me every night. And then you come again, sniffing and shivering, hat in hand, with that wistful face like a child's fistful of bluets or white violets, improvident as the dawn, and once more I provide for a shot of penicillin down at the pharmacy, or one more bottle of electrical baby syrup. Or, briskly, you come to settle what we call our accounts, with 2 old copybooks, one with flowers on the cover, the other with a camel. Immediate confusion. You've left out the decimal points. Your columns stagger, honeycombed with zeros. You whisper conspiratorially. The numbers mount to millions. Account books? They are dream books. In the kitchen we dream together how the meek shall inherit the earth, or several acres of mine. With blue sugar bags on their heads, carrying your lunch, your children scuttle by me like little moles above ground, or even crouch behind bushes as if I were out to shoot them. Impossible to make friends, though each will grab at once for an orange or a piece of candy. Twined in wisps of fog, I see you all up there, along with Formoso, the donkey, who brays like a pump gone dry, then suddenly stops. All just standing, staring off into fog and space. Or coming down at night in silence, except for hoofs, in dim moonlight, the horse or Formoso stumbling after. Between us float a few big, soft, pale blue, sluggish fireflies, the jellyfish of the air. Patch upon patch upon patch, your wife keeps all of you covered. She has gone over and over, forearmed is forewarned. Your pair of bright blue pants with white thread, and these days your limbs are draped in blueprints. You paint, heaven knows why, the outside of the crown and brim of your straw hat, perhaps to reflect the sun? Or perhaps, when you were small, your mother said, "Manuelzinho, one thing, be sure you always paint your straw hat." One was gold for a while, but the gold wore off, like plate. One was bright green. Unkindly, I called you Chlorophyll Kid. My visitors thought it was funny. I apologize here and now. You helpless, foolish man, I love you all I can, I think. Or do I? I take off my hat, unpainted and figurative, to you. Again. I promise to try. And now, a work by Seamus Heaney, the titular poem of this collection, Seeing Things. 1. In Ishbofen on a Sunday morning, sunlight, turf smoke, seagulls, boatslick, diesel. One by one we were being handed down into a boat that dipped and shilly-shallied scaresomely every time. We sat tight on short cross benches in nervous 2s and 3s, obedient, newly close, nobody speaking except the boatmen, as the gunwales sank, and seemed they might ship water any minute. The sea was very calm, but even so, when the engine kicked and our ferrymen swayed for balance, reaching for the tiller, I panicked at the shiftiness and heft of the craft itself. What guaranteed us? That quick response and buoyancy and swim kept me in agony. All the time, as we went sailing evenly across the deep, still, seeable down into water, it was as if I looked from another boat sailing through air, far up, and could see how riskily we fared into the morning, and loved in vain our bare, bowed, numbered heads. 2. Claritas, the dry-eyed Latin word, is perfect for the carved stone of the water, where Jesus stands up to his unwet knees and John the Baptist pours out more water over his head, all this in bright sunlight on the facade of a cathedral. Lines hard and thin and sinuous represent the flowing river. Down between the lines, little antic fish are all go, nothing else. And yet, in that utter visibility, the stone's alive with what's invisible. Waterweed, stirred sand grains hurrying off, the shadowy, unshadowed stream itself. All afternoon heat wavered on the steps, and the air we stood up to our eyes in wavered like the zigzag hieroglyph for life itself. 3. Once upon a time my undrowned father walked into our yard. He had gone to spray potatoes in a field on the riverbank and wouldn't bring me with him. The horse sprayer was too big and newfangled. Bluestone might burn me in the eyes. The horse was fresh. I might scare the horse, and so on. I threw stones at a bird on the shed roof, as much for the clatter of the stones as anything. But when he came back, I was inside the house and saw him out the window, scatter-eye, and daunted strange without his hat, his step unguided, his ghosthood imminent. When he was turning on the riverbank, the horse had rested and reared up and pitched cart and sprayer and everything off balance. So the whole rig went over into a deep whirlpool, hoofs, chains, shafts, cartwheels, barrel, and tackle, all tumbling off the world, and the hat already merrily swept along the quieter reaches. That afternoon, I saw him face to face. He came to me with his damp footprints out of the river, and there was nothing between us there that might not still be happily ever after. And now an old one. The Signifying Monkey. The monkey and the lion got to talking one day. Monkey looked down and said, "Lion, I hear you's king in every way. But you know somebody who do not think that is true. He told me he could whip the living daylights out of you." Lion said, "Who?" Monkey said, "Lion, he talked about your mama. He talked about your grandma too. And I'm too polite to tell you what he said about you." Lion said, "Who said what? Who?" Monkey in the tree, lion on the ground. Monkey kept on signifying, but he didn't come down. Monkey said, "His name is Elephant. He stone sure is not your friend." Lion said, "He don't need to be, because today will be his end." Lion took off through the jungle, lickety-split, meaning to grab Elephant and tear him bit by bit. He come across Elephant copping a righteous nod under a fine, cool, shady tree. Lion said, "You big old no-good so-and-so, it's either you or me." Lion let out a solid roar and bopped Elephant with his paw. Elephant just took his trunk and busted old Lion's jaw. Lion let out another roar, reared up 6 feet tall. Elephant just kicked him in the belly and laughed to see him drop and fall. Lion rolled over, copped Elephant by the throat. Elephant just shook him loose and butted him like a goat. Then he tromped him and he stomped him till the lion yelled, "Oh no!" And it was near nigh sunset when Elephant let Lion go. The Signifying Monkey was still settin' in his tree when he looked down and saw the lion. Said, "Why, Lion, who can that there be?" Lion said, "It's me." Monkey rapped, "Why, Lion, you look more dead than alive." Lion said, "Monkey, I don't want to hear your jive and jive." Monkey just kept signifying, "Lion, you for sure caught hell. Mr. Elephant's done whipped you to fare thee well." "Why, Lion, you look like to me you been in the precinct station and had the 3rd degree. Else you look like you been high on gauge and done got caught in a monkey cage. You ain't no king to me. Facts, I don't think you can even as much as roar. And if you try, I'm liable to come down out of this tree and whip your tail some more." The monkey started laughing and jumping up and down, but he jumped so hard the limb broke, and he landed, bam, on the ground. When he went to run, his foot slipped, and he fell flat down. Grrr! The lion was on him, with his front feet on his hind. Monkey hollered, "Ow!" Lion said, "You little flea bag, you. Why, I'll eat you up alive. I wouldn't have been in this fix at all, wasn't for your signifying jive." "Please," said the monkey, "Mr. Lion, if you'll just let me go, I got something to tell you. Please, I think you ought to know." Lion let the monkey loose to see what his tale could be, and monkey jumped right back on up into his tree. "What I was going to tell you," said monkey, "is your square old so-and-so. If you fool with me, I'll get elephant to whip your head some more." "Monkey," said the lion, beat to his unbooted knees, "you and all your signifying children better stay up in them trees." Which is why, today, monkey does his signifying away up out of the way. And now a couple by Wallace Stevens. The first called "The Plot Against the Giant." First girl. When this yokel comes maundering, wetting his hacker, I shall run before him, diffusing the civilest odors out of geraniums and unsmelled flowers. It will check him. Second girl. I shall run before him, arching cloths besprinkled with colors as small as fish eggs. The threads will abash him. Third girl. Oh la, le pauvre. I shall run before him with a curious puffing. He will bend his ear then. I shall whisper heavenly labials in a world of gutturals. It will undo him. And this titled POURTRAICTE, Madame Sainte Ursule et les 11,000 Vierges, which means the portrait of Madame Saint Ursula and the 11,000 virgins. Ursula in a garden found a bed of radishes. She kneeled upon the ground and gathered them, with flowers around, blue, gold, pink, and green. She dressed in red and gold brocade, and in the grass an offering made of radishes and flowers. She said, "My dear, upon your altars I have placed the marguerite and coquelicot, and roses, frail as April snow. But here," she said, "where none can see, I make an offering in the grass of radishes and flowers." And then she wept, for fear the Lord would not accept. The good Lord in his garden sought new leaf and shadowy tinct, and they were all his thought. He heard her low accord, half prayer and half ditty, and he felt a subtle quiver that was not heavenly love or pity. This is not writ in any book. And now one by Poe, The Coliseum. Type of the antique Rome, rich reliquary of lofty contemplation left to time by buried centuries of pomp and power, at length, after so many days of weary pilgrimage and burning thirst for the springs of lore that in thee lie, I kneel, an altered and an humble man, amid thy shadows, and so drink within my very soul thy grandeur, gloom, and glory. Vastness, and age, and memories of eld, silence and desolation and dim night. I feel ye now, I feel ye in your strength. O spells more sure than e'er Judean king taught in the gardens of Gethsemane. O charms more potent than the rapt Chaldee ever drew down from out the quiet stars. Here, where a hero fell, a column falls. Here, where the mimic eagle glared in gold, a midnight vigil holds the swarthy bat. Here, where the dames of Rome their gilded hair waved to the wind, now wave the reed and thistle. Here, where on golden throne the monarch lulled, glides, spectre-like, unto his marble home, lit by the wan light of the horned moon, the swift and silent lizard of the stones. But stay, these walls, these ivy-clad arcades, these mouldering plinths, these sad and blackened shafts, these vague entablatures, this crumbling frieze, these shattered cornices, this wreck, this ruin, these stones, alas, these gray stones, are they all of the famed, and the colossal left by the corrosive hours to fate and me? Not all, the echoes answer me, not all. Prophetic sounds and loud arise forever from us, and from all ruin unto the wise, as melody from Memnon to the sun. We rule the hearts of mightiest men, we rule with a despotic sway all giant minds. We are not impotent, we pallid stones. Not all our power is gone, not all our fame, not all the magic of our high renown, not all the wonder that encircles us, not all the mysteries that in us lie, not all the memories that hang upon and cling around about us as a garment, clothing us in a robe of more than glory. And now a work by Hart Crane, Powhatan's Daughter. Pocahontas, a well-featured but wanton young girl of the age of 11 or 12 years, get the boys forth with her into the marketplace and make them wheel, falling on their hands, turning their heels upwards, whom she would follow, and wheel so herself, naked as she was, all the fort over. The harbor dawn. Insistently through sleep a tide of voices, 400 years and more, or is it from the soundless shore of sleep that time? They meet you listening midway in your dream, the long, tired sounds, fog-insulated noises, gongs in white surplices, beshrouded wails, far strum of foghorns, signals dispersed in veils. And then a truck will lumber past the wharves as winch engines begin throbbing on some deck, or on a drunken stevedore's howl and thud below comes echoing alley upward through dim snow. And if they take your sleep away sometimes, they give it back again. Soft sleeves of sound attend the darkling harbor, the pillowed bay. Somewhere out there in blankness steam spills into steam and wanders, washed away, flurried by keen fifings, eddied among distant chiming buoys, adrift. The sky, cool feathery fold, suspends, distills this wavering slumber. Slowly, immemorially, the window, the half-covered chair, ask nothing but his sheath of pallid air. And you beside me, bless it now, while sirens sing to us, stealthily weave us into day, recalls you to your love there in a waking dream to merge your seed. Serenely now, before day claims our eyes, your cool arms murmurously about me lay. while myriad snowy hands are clustering at the panes. Your hands within my hands are deeds, my tongue upon your throat, singing arms close, eyes wide, undoubtful dark, drink the dawn, a forest shudders in your hair. The wind goes blonde slowly, frostily clears. With whom? From cyclopean towers across Manhattan waters, 2, 3 bright window eyes aglitter, disk the sun, released, aloft with cold gulls hither. The fog leans one last moment on the sill. Who is the woman with us in the dawn? Whose is the flesh our feet have moved upon? Under the mistletoe of dreams, a star, as though to join us at some distant hill, turns in the waking west and goes to sleep. Van Winkle. Macadam gun gray as the tunny's belt, leaps from far Rockaway to Golden Gate. Listen, the miles a hurdy-gurdy grinds, down gold arpeggios, mile on mile unwinds. Street spread past store and factory, sped by sunlight and her smile. Times earlier when you hurried off to school, it is the same hour, though a later day. You walked with Pizarro in a copybook, and Cortez rode up, reining tautly in, firmly as coffee grips the taste, and away. There was Priscilla's cheek close in the wind, and Captain Smith, all beard and certainty, and Rip Van Winkle bowing by the way. Is this Sleepy Hollow, friend? And he, like memory, she is time's truant, shall take you by the hand. And Rip forgot the office hours and he forgot the pay. Van Winkle sweeps a tenement way down on Avenue A. The grind organ says, remember, remember, the cinder pile at the end of the backyard where we stoned the family of young garter snakes under, and the monoplanes we launched with paper wings and twisted rubber bands. Recall, recall the rapid tongues that flittered from under the ash heap day after day, whenever your stick discovered some sunning inch of unsuspecting fiber. It flashed back at your thrust, as clean as fire. And Rip was slowly made aware that he, Van Winkle, was not here nor there. He woke and swore he'd seen Broadway, a Catskill daisy chain in May. So memory that strikes a rhyme out of a box or splits a random smell of flowers through glass, is it the whip stripped from the lilac tree one day in spring my father took to me? Or is it the sabbatical, unconscious smile my mother almost brought me once from church, and once only, as I recall? It flickered through the snow screen blindly. It forsook her at the doorway. It was gone before I had left the window. It did not return with the kiss in the hall. Macadam, gun gray as the tunny's belt, leaps from far Rockaway to Golden Gate. Keep hold of that nickel for car change, Rip. Have you got your times? And hurry along, Van Winkle. It's getting late. And now a few by Mark Strand. The first, I will love the 21st century. Dinner was getting cold. The guests, hoping for quick, impersonal, random encounters of the usual sort, were sprawled in the bedrooms. The potatoes were hard, the beans soft, the meat. There was no meat. The winter sun had turned the elms and houses yellow. Deer were moving down the road like refugees, and in the driveway, Cats were warming themselves on the hood of a car. Then a man turned and said to me, "Although I love the past, the dark of it, the weight of it teaching us nothing, the loss of it, the all of it asking for nothing, I will love the 21st century more. For in it I see someone in a bathrobe and slippers, brown-eyed and poor, walking through snow without leaving so much as a footprint behind." "Oh?" I said, putting on my hat. "Oh?" The next time. 1. Nobody sees it happening, but the architecture of our time is becoming the architecture of the next time. And the dazzle of light upon the waters is as nothing beside the changes wrought therein, just as our waywardness means nothing against the steady pull of things over the edge. Nobody can stop the flow, but nobody can start it either. Time slips by. Our sorrows do not turn into poems, and what is invisible stays that way. Desire has fled, leaving only a trace of perfume in its wake, and so many people we loved have gone, and no voice comes from outer space, from the folds of dust and carpets of wind, to tell us that this is the way it was meant to happen, that if only we knew how long the ruins would last, we would never complain. 2. Perfection is out of the question for people like us, so why plug away at the same old self when the landscape has opened its arms and given us marvelous shrines to flock towards? The great motels to the west are waiting. In somebody's yard a pristine dog is hoping that we'll drive by, and on the rubber surface of the lake people bobbing up and down will wave. The highway comes right to the door, so let's take off before the world out there burns up. Life should be more than the body's weight working itself from room to room. A turn through the forest will do us good, so will a spin among the farms. Just think of the chickens strutting, the cows swinging their udders and flicking their tails at flies. And one can imagine prisms of summer light breaking against the silent, haze-filled sleep of the farmer and his wife. 3. It could have been another story, the one that was meant instead of the one that happened. Living like this, hoping to revise what has been false or rendered unreadable, is not what we wanted. Believing that the intended story would have been like a day in the west when everything is tirelessly present, the mountains casting their long shadow over the valley where the wind sings its circular tune and trees respond with a dry clapping of leaves, was overly simple, no doubt, and short-sighted. For soon the leaves, having gone black, would fall, and the annulling snow would pillow the walk, and we, with shovels in hand, would meet, bow, and scrape the sidewalk clean. What else would there be this late in the day for us but desire to make amends and start again, the sun's compassion as it disappears? And one more by Mark Strand, titled "The Night, the Porch." To stare at nothing is to lean by heart. To stare at nothing is to learn by heart what all of us will be swept into, and bearing oneself to the wind is feeling the ungraspable somewhere close by. Trees can sway or be still. Day or night can be what they wish. What we desire, more than a season or weather, is the comfort of being strangers, at least to ourselves. This is the crux of the matter, which is why even now we seem to be waiting for something whose appearance would be its vanishing. The sound, say, of a few leaves falling, or just one leaf, or less. There is no end to what we can learn. The book out there tells us as much, and was never written with us in mind. And now a couple by Ted Hughes. Excuse me. The first is titled A Fable. A man brought to his knees in the desert had a vision of our technological future, and it was a city designed as an atom. Mushrooms of glass, parabolas, spirals, these housed the electronic brain, and the whole thing shuddered like a furnace against him, and his blackened mouth fell open. There were no more houses modeled on skulls, no four-footed vehicles with eyes and with anus, roaring and stinking, because this was a home planned for the spirit, a nuclear architecture, sparking blue on a dust speck. Then he saw men moving in that city, as refractions rainbow through the snowflake. These were disembarrassed of the lumber of guts, the man-eating, touchy parasite. They lived on inoculations of light. The lost man croaked like a toad in a baking stone, interested only in water. Water. The next by Ted Hughes is titled A Childish Prank. Man's and woman's bodies lay without souls, dully gaping, foolishly staring, inert on the flowers of Eden. God pondered. The problem was so great, it dragged him asleep. Crow laughed. He bit the worm, God's only son, into two writhing halves. He stuffed into man the tail half, with the wounded end hanging out. He stuffed the head half first. He stuffed the head half head first into woman, and it crept in deeper and up to peer out through her eyes, calling its tail half to join up quickly, because, oh, it was painful. Man awoke, being dragged across the grass. Woman awoke to see him coming. Neither knew what had happened. God went on sleeping. Crow went on laughing. And one more by Ted Hughes, this from his translations of Ovid. Callisto and Arcas. After Phaeton's disaster, Jove was repairing the earth, clothing the burnt lands again with life. Excuse me. But even such a labor of love, so urgent, has to yield to one even more urgent. And there she was, the Arcadian beauty, Callisto. He stared. Lust bristled up his thighs and poured into the roots of his teeth. She wasn't the sort that sat at home, her eyes in a daze, on the whirl of a spinning wheel or a mirror. She loped along with the huntress Diana, her tunic pinned with a bold brooch, her ponytail in a white ribbon, and in her hand a bow or a javelin. Of all Maenalus nymphs, she was Diana's favorite, but favorites have to fall. The sun was well past noon when this girl came in under the massive cooling columns of a virgin forest. She slackened her bow, and setting her quiver as a pillow, flung herself down among the anemones on the sun-littered floor of the woodland. And that is where Jupiter spotted her, defenseless, drowsing, languid. A wonder, he breathed, that my wife need never disturb, or if she happens to, the price will be worth it. Callisto woke to a voice. Above her, Diana's perfect double, gazing down, was speaking to her. Best loved of all my virgins, where did you hunt today? On which ridges? Down which valleys? The girl sat up, astonished. O goddess, O my divine mistress, greater than Jupiter, and I don't care if he hears me. Jove smiled, secretly, behind his disguise, delighted to receive more adulation than himself. He stretched beside her and kissed her, a kiss more than maidenly, that roughened, a kiss that, as she tried to answer him, gagged her voice while his arms tightened round her, straitjacketing her body, and his action revealed the god, irresistible and shameless. Callisto's piety had limits. She fought. If Juno had seen how she fought, her final cruelty might have been modified. But it was no good. Desperately as she denied him, the god of gods went off home contented, as if from heavenly bliss to heavenly bliss. The girl wept. Suddenly she hated the forest, the flowers that had watched while it happened. She was in such a hurry to get away she almost abandoned her bow and her quiver. Diana, coming along the ridge of Menelaus with her virgin troop after hard hunting, saw her darling and called her. Callisto's jumpy terror of Diana's likeness grabbed with electric hands, and she bolted, but then recognized her friends, the virgins who ran with the goddess, and knew this could not be Jove, so she joined them, but changed now. How hard it is to keep guilt out of the face. She no longer led the troop, was no longer the boisterous nearest to the goddess. She hung back, eyes to the ground, as if slinking along from hiding to hiding. If any spoke to her, she blushed, then paled. Without her divinity, Diana could not have missed the 1,000 human tokens that were no puzzle to the nymphs. 9 months passed. Finally came the day. Heated with hunting under the hot sun, Diana led her company into a grove with a cool stream over smooth pebbles. Here is a place, she called, where we can strip and bathe and be unseen. The Arcadian girl was in a panic. The rest were naked in no time. She delayed. She made excuses. Then all the others stripped her by force, and with shrill voices exclaimed at her giveaway belly that she tried pitifully to hide with her hands. The goddess, outraged, cried, "Do not defile this water or us. Get away from us now and forever." Meanwhile, Juno had seen everything. She was merely waiting for an occasion to exact the exemplary punishment. The moment Jove's bastard was born, a boy, Arcas, her fury exploded. She stared in wild hatred at the new infant. "So," she screamed at Callisto, "the world can see you have perfected your insult and my shame. Now see me perfect in my revenge on this beauty of yours that so unbalanced my husband." She grabbed the girl by the hair above her forehead and jerked her down flat on her face. As Callisto lay there, pleading for mercy, with outstretched arms, those arms the god had caressed, suddenly bushed thick and black hair, with her hands curved into scoops of long talons. They had become feet, and her mouth, that Jupiter had kissed in his rapture, was fanged jaws, like a torn, open wound. Then, to empty her cries of their appeal, the goddess nipped off her speech. Instead of words, a shattering snarl burst from her throat. A threat. Callisto was a bear. Yet her mind was unaltered. Her lament was the roar of a bear, but her grief was human. And though they were a bear's forepaws that she raked at heaven's face with, her despair over Jove's ingratitude, though she could not speak it, was a girl's. Afraid of sleeping in the woods, she crept into the gardens of what had been her home. Often she galloped for her life, hearing the hounds. Often she labored, gasping, hunted across the hillsides where she had hunted. Sometimes she forgot what she was and hid from the other creatures. As before, Above all, what this bear feared were the bears. She also feared the wolves, though her own father was out there among them, one of them. Meanwhile, Arcas grew to his 15th year. He knew nothing at all about his mother. Hunting was his passion. One day, after choosing the ground carefully, reckoning with the wind and with the lie of the land, Arcas had pitched his nets among the scrubby coverts of Erymanthus. As he started the drive, of a sudden, out of the long grass his mother reared upright to face him, standing tall to see him better, fearless, as if she recognized him. She recognized him. Arcas backed slowly, mouth dry, terror, 3 parts wisdom, staring fixedly at the eyes that stared at him. But when she dropped on all fours, and he saw her shaggy shoulders humping through undergrowth towards him, he could not think what this great beast intended, if not to kill him. He braced himself behind his spear to meet her momentum and drive that long, keen ground blade as deeply into her body as he could. Jupiter saw it all. He stooped down from heaven and blocked the bronze point with his fingertip, then spun mother and son up in a whirlwind, so these two, about to be reunited in that bloody crime and tragic error, found themselves far out in space, transformed to constellations, the great bear and the small, dancing around the pole star together. Now, a poem by Phyllis Wheatley from 1 Samuel chapter 17, Goliath of Gath. Ye martial powers, and all ye tuneful 9, inspire my song and aid my high design. The dreadful scenes and toils of war I write, the ardent warriors and the fields of fight. You best remember, and you best can sing the acts of heroes to the vocal string. Resume the lays with which your sacred lyre did then the poet and the sage inspire. Now front to front the armies were displayed, here Israel ranged, and thee the foes arrayed. The hosts on 2 opposing mountains stood, thick as the foliage of the waving wood. Between them an extensive valley lay, o'er which the gleaming armor poured the day. When, from the camp of the Philistine foes, dreadful to view, a mighty warrior rose, in the dire deeds of bleeding battle skilled, the monster stalks, the terror of the field. From Gath he sprung, Goliath was his name, of fierce deportment and gigantic frame. A brazen helmet on his head was placed, a coat of mail his form terrific graced. The greaves his legs, the targe his shoulders pressed, dreadful in arms, high towering o'er the rest. A spear he proudly waved, whose iron head, strange to relate, 600 shekels weighed. He strode along and shook the ample field, while Phoebus blazed refulgent on his shield. Through Jacob's race a chilling horror ran, when thus the huge, enormous chief began. Say what the cause, that in this proud array you set your battle in the face of day? One hero find in all your vaunting train, then see who loses and who wins the plain. For he who wins in triumph may demand perpetual service from the vanquished land. Your armies I defy, your force despise, by far inferior in Philistia's eyes. Produce a man, and let us try the fight, decide the contest, and the victor's right. Thus challenged he. All Israel stood amazed, and every chief in consternation gazed. But Jesse's son, in youthful bloom appears, and warlike courage far beyond his years. He left the folds, he left the flowery meads, and soft recesses of the sylvan shades. Now Israel's monarch and his troops arise, with peals of shouts ascending to the skies. In Elab's vale the scene of combat lies, when the fair morning blushed with orient red. What David's sire enjoined, the son obeyed, and swift of foot towards the trench he came, where glowed each bosom with the martial flame. He leaves his carriage to another's care, and runs to meet his brethren of the war. While yet they spake, the giant chief arose, repeats the challenge, and insults his foes. Struck with the sound, and trembling at the view, affrighted Israel from its post withdrew. Observe ye this tremendous foe, they cried, who in proud vaunts our armies hath defied. Whoever lays him prostrate on the plain, freedom in Israel for his house shall gain, and on him wealth unknown the king will pour, and give his royal daughter for his dower. Then Jesse's youngest hope, my brethren, say what shall be done for him who takes away reproach from Jacob, who destroys the chief and puts a period to his country's grief? He vaunts the honors of his arms abroad, and scorns the armies of the living God. Thus spoke the youth. The attentive people eyed the wondrous hero, and again replied, such the rewards our monarch will bestow on him who conquers and destroys his foe. Eliab heard, and kindled into ire, to hear his shepherd brother thus inquire, and thus begun, what errand brought thee, say? Who keeps thy flock, or does it go astray? I know the base ambition of thine heart, but back in safety from the field depart. Eliab thus to Jesse's youngest heir expressed his wrath in accents most severe, when to his brother mildly he replied, what have I done, or what to cause thee chide? The words were told before the king, who sent for the young hero to his royal tent. Before the monarch, dauntless, he began, for this Philistine fail no heart of man. I'll take the veil, and with the giant fight. I dread not all his boasts, nor all his might. When thus the king, durst thou a stripling go, and venture combat with so great a foe, who all his days has been inured to fight, and made its deeds his study and delight? Battles and bloodshed brought this monster forth, and clouds and whirlwinds ushered in his birth. When David thus, I kept the fleecy care, and out there rushed a lion and a bear. A tender lamb the hungry lion took, and with no other weapon than my crook, bold I pursued, and chased him o'er the field. The prey delivered, and the lion killed. As thus the lion and the bear I slew, so shall Goliath fall, and all his crew. The God who saved me from these beasts of prey, be me, by me this monster in the dust shall lay. So David spoke. The wondering king replied, go thou, with heaven and victory on thy side. This coat of mail, this sword, gird on, he said, and placed a mighty helmet on his head. The coat, the sword, the helm he laid aside, nor chose to venture with those arms untried. Then took his staff, and to the neighboring brook instant he ran, and then 5 pebbles took. Meantime descended to Philistia's son a radiant cherub, and he thus begun, Goliath, well thou knowest thou hast defied yon Hebrew armies, and thou God denied. Rebellious wretch, audacious worm, forbear nor tempt the vengeance of this God too far. Those who with his omnipotence contend, no eye shall pity, and no arm defend. Proud as thou art, in short-lived glory great, I come to tell thee thine approaching fate. Regard my words, the judge of all the gods, beneath whose steps the towering mountain nods, will give thine armies to the savage brood that cut the liquid air or range the wood. Thee, too, a well-aimed pebble shall destroy, and thou shalt perish by a beardless boy. Such is the mandate from the realms above, and should I try the vengeance to remove, myself a rebel to my king would prove. Goliath, say, shall grace to him be shown, who dares heaven's monarch and insults his throne? Your words are lost on me, the giant cries, while fear and wrath contended in his eyes, when thus the messenger from heaven replies, provoke no more Jehovah's awful hand to hurl its vengeance on thy guilty land. He grasps the thunder, and he wings the storm, servants, their sovereign's orders to perform. The angel spoke and turned his eyes away, adding new radiance to the rising day. Now David comes, the fatal stones demand his left, the staff engaged his better hand. The giant moved, and from his towering height surveyed the stripling and disdained the sight, and thus began, am I a dog with thee? Bring'st thou no armor, but a staff to me? The gods on thee their volleyed curses pour, and beasts and birds of prey thy flesh devour. David, undaunted, thus, thy spear and shield shall no protection to thy body yield. Jehovah's name, no other arms I bear. I ask no other in this glorious war. Today the Lord of hosts to me will give victory. Today thy doom thou shalt receive. The fate you threaten shall your own become, and beasts shall be your animated tomb, that all the earth's inhabitants may know that there's a God who governs all below. This great assembly, too, shall witness stand, that needs not sword nor spear the Almighty's hand. The battle his, the conquest he bestows, and to our power consigns our hated foes. Thus David spoke. Goliath heard, and came to meet the hero in the field of fame. Ah, fatal meeting to thy troops and thee! But thou wast deaf to the divine decree. Young David meets thee not in vain. 'Tis thine to perish on the ensanguined plain. And now the youth, the forceful pebble flung, Philistia trembled as it whizzed along. In his dread forehead, where the helmet ends, just o'er the brow the well-aimed stone descends. It pierced the skull and shattered all the brain. Prone on his face he tumbled to the plain. Goliath's fall no smaller terror yields than riving thunder in aerial fields. The soul still lingered in its loved abode, till conquering David o'er the giant strode. Goliath's sword then laid its master dead, and from the body hewed its ghastly head. The blood in gushing torrents drenched the plain. The soul found passage through the spouting veins. And now aloud the illustrious victor said, where are your boastings, now your champion's dead? Scarce had he spoke, when the Philistines fled, but fled in vain, the conquerors swift pursued. What scenes of slaughter, and what seas of blood! There, Saul, thy thousands grasped the empurpled sand. In pangs of death, the conquest of thine hand. And David, there were thy 10,000s laid. Thus Israel's damsels musically played. Near Gath and Ekron many a hero lay, breathed out their souls, and cursed the light of day. Their fury, quenched by death, no longer burns, and David with Goliath's head returns. To Salem brought, but in his tent he placed the load of armor which the giant graced. His monarch saw him coming from the war, and thus demanded of the son of Ner. Say, who is this amazing youth? He cried, when thus the leader of the host replied, as lives thy soul, I know not whence he sprung, so great in prowess, though in years so young. Inquire whose son is he, the sovereign said, before whose conquering arm Philistia fled. Before the king behold the stripling stand, Goliath's head depending from his hand. To him, the king, say, of what martial line art thou, young hero, and what sire was thine? He humbly thus, the son of Jesse, I came the glories of the field to try. Small is my tribe, but valiant in the fight. Small is my city, but thy royal right. Then take the promised gifts, the monarch cried, conferring riches and the royal bride. Knit to my soul, forever thou remain with me, nor quit my regal roof again. Thank y'all so much for watching. This one was a bit longer than I intended, but I hope that y'all enjoyed this. I'm going to close with a poem by Charles Bukowski entitled Some Notes on Bach and Haydn. It is quite something to turn your radio on low at 4:30 in the morning in an apartment house and hear Haydn, while through the blinds you can see only the black night as beautiful and quiet as a flower. And with that, something to drink, of course, a cigarette, and the heater going, and Haydn going. Maybe just 35 people in a city of millions listening as you are listening now, looking at the walls, smoking quietly, not hating anything, not wanting anything, existing like Mercury. You listen to a dead man's music at 4:30 in the morning. Only he is not really dead, as the smoke from your cigarette curls up, is not really dead. And all is magic, this good sound in Los Angeles. But now a siren takes the air, some trouble, murder, robbery, death. But Haydn goes on and you listen. One of the finest mornings of your life. Like some of those when you were very young, with stupid lunch pail and sleepy eyes, riding the early bus to the railroad yards to scrub the windows and side trains with a brush and oakite, but knowing all the while you would take the longest gamble, and now having taken it, still alive, poor but strong, knowing Haydn at 4:30 a.m., the only way to know him, the blinds down and the black night, the cigarette, in my hands this pen, writing in my notebook. My typewriter at this hour would scream like a raped bear. And now, somehow, knowing the way, warmly and gently, finally, as Haydn ends. And then a voice tells me where I can get bacon and eggs, orange juice, toast, coffee, this very morning for a pleasant price. And I like this man for telling me this after Haydn, and I want to get dressed and go out and find the waitress and eat bacon and eggs and lift the coffee cup up to my mouth. But I am distracted. The voice tells me that Bach will be next. Brandenburg Concerto No. 2 in F major. So I go into the kitchen for a new can of beer. May this night never see morning, as finally one night will not. But I do suppose morning will come this day, asking its hard way. The cars jammed on freeways, faces as horrible as unfleshed excreta, trapped lives less than beautiful love, and I walk out, knowing the way, cold beer can in hand, as Bach begins, and this good night is still everywhere. Good night.